helpful.
That's all right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar for 2026. I cannot believe we're here already, and we're nearly a quarter of the way through the year. Thanks so much for taking the time this morning to join us. For those of you I haven't met before, my name is Kayla Ellice. I'm the Managing Director at Inception Marketing. And today we are joined by Aaron Smith, who's the founder and Managing Director over at Morphability. So if any of you are unfamiliar with Morphability, they are a sales coaching and sales support experts in the IT services space. So, but I'm sure Aaron will give us a bit of a rundown today on what he's going to do. But today we're going to look at and talk about what is often overlooked in MSP or IT services sales. So there's usually quite a few things that are missed or overlooked. So we wanted to do a bit of a webinar. Aaron and I knocked our heads together a little bit over the last couple of weeks, just talking about what we think what things we think are often overlooked and what MSPs and IT service providers need to be aware of. So Aaron is going to share his screen. He's done up some wonderful slides for us and lead us on what I think is going to be a really good journey and lessons for a lot of people on this webinar. So Aaron, thanks for joining us today. What is the golden question? What is overlooked in IT sales?
We're opening Pandora's box, and thanks. Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I think it's something that you and I have talked about for quite some time over the course of the past few years that we've known each other. I think in all reality, people think of sales as being very transactional, and it certainly might have been once upon a time, but with people moving in their ability to find out information themselves, sales is becoming less and less relevant in an old school fashion. And I think that's where you really need to be ready to evolve the way you work and how you talk to people. And that's really where we're going to start today in terms of, as the tagline says, we've got to turn from, tactical pitching. I stood in front of a group of MSPs in Auckland in December and basically challenged them that if they don't evolve and stop being plumbers, fixing taps and under desks and start becoming more consultant-led engagements, you're not going to die, because there'll be plenty of clients who like that boring tactical conversation, but you're not going to grow with new ones. The newer generation want more than speeds and feeds, and away they go. So, why don't we kick in?
Yeah, I think it's a great point how we're moving into that more of that consultative selling as business owners now. And I think it's relevant not just for this industry, but multiple industries, right? People want to be talked through their problem. They want to feel like you understand what they need done. And it's very rare, I think, now that we come across someone who knows exactly what they want. They only want to talk to you about what they want. They actually want to explore the greater picture.
And a lot of the time, you're actually coming into the party now way further down the path. They've Googled, they've AI'd, they've done all the things of how do I solve this myself? And it really only comes down to you getting involved when they can't self-serve. And unfortunately, we in sales are excitable little Jack Russells who run around like headless chooks and just go and get things done in a really excited manner. Which means that by the time we actually sit down with somebody, the first question we're looking at is, how do I get what I'm selling over the line? Because there's pressure on sales teams to go and sell and engage and do this and do that and do everything that we're asked to do. So the attitude and approach is one of pace and speed, as opposed to treating it more like a marathon, not a sprint. And that what can we sell you opener is very much junior sales 101, and that education and coaching of them to actually stop talking about yourself and start talking about what that client wants, and really just opening that door going, why are we here? What are we trying to achieve? They've done the research. They've looked into what they need.
Yeah. And I think there's a great saying, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? do the listening. Like, you're meant to listen twice as much as you are meant to speak. So, and that, I think, just by listening to a customer and understanding what their problems are, you can actually learn so much. And I think that's one of the things that you do really well, right? Is you really educate business owners who are often still in selling to lead with that listen first approach.
It's an interesting one, because most business owners have got there by being either the smartest person in the room or someone who brings along with them a solid amount of gravitas. You can walk into that room and somebody's sitting in front of you and you know more than they do. So it's very easy to be the subject matter expert. The problem with that is it only scales so far. You only have 24 hours, much like the rest of your team. And if you want to scale your business beyond you, your team needs to be able to think and operate and act in the way that you do and have a more intelligent and strategic conversation with the clients they're trying to talk to. And you might not be the right person to train those. I think I just noticed Paul Mangano sitting in the room. Paul, I think, was in the room when I gently challenged the entire room of how much time do they actually spend with their brand new sales reps who weren't successful because they were crap at being a sales rep. And in all reality, it might, I think the evolution of my thought process was that you didn't spend enough time with them. You might not be the right person to spend more time with them as well. If you're not a good teacher, or you're not a good coach, you're not able to educate people on how to sell, how to engage, yes, you're the right person culturally for your business, but you need to spend time. They need to know how to engage in your interest, in your manner, in the way that you are, without being you. And you're not always the right coach for that either. Here's what we're going to touch. Is a tactical selling piece. Features first pitching often loses you the deal within seconds. We're going to touch on a strategic conversation framework. I, again, said this in front of people before. Managed services is no longer the main meal. It might be the thing that is the cash cow for your business. It might be the thing that brings in all the money, but it's now the fries. It's not the main meal. And we're going to talk about that. And then ultimately, I want some practical things that you guys can go away and change now, mindset-wise, and off we go. Tacticals, part one. Most IT sales conversations are being run talking about speeds and feeds and what we can do and where we need to go. And if I look at that level, the line at the top of this slide is fairly simple. When you lead with products, you start to compete on price. I've said it to so many MSPs there. You please tell me your point of difference. And frankly, none of you have a point of difference if you're talking about managed services. And I'll say that again. None of you have a point of difference if you're talking about managed services, because you all do the same thing. You all talk the same way. You all act the same way. You are selling the same thing. You're selling people who've got good customer service. You're selling the best techs in the room. You're selling all of these things that everyone else is also selling. So there is no point of difference there. And as a result, the only differential becomes price.
And then it's just a race to the bottom.
It really is. And this sort of is the first point that I'd just hammer home gently with. If this is the main meal for you, you're having the wrong conversation. Yeah, you almost want to get to the point where you've differentiated yourself first, and away you go from there. You guys are losing deals, and that last point's an important one. Some of the best MSPs who've got the right ideas, the right driver, are just having the wrong conversation. And I think that's really where we need to change from stop being so interested in the technology and the fixing the tap and the plumbing of the thing, being the tradie, and start being more and more questions. Discovery is critical in terms of understanding where their gaps are, what their most important things are from there.
I think what would be really cool is if we've got the chat open and the Q&A. It would be awesome if people are, if they're comfortable. I mean, there probably isn't a reason why you shouldn't be, because everyone should have a bit of a point of difference. If you can write what you think, what your point of difference is in the chat or the Q&A, we get both. So it's fine. Because what we really want to do is try and help you understand where you can differentiate. Like, what is your differentiator? Because everyone does have a differentiator. I think what Aaron is saying, it's when we start and we lead with the MSP conversation or the managed service conversation, no one has a differentiator, but every business does have a differentiator.
You all do. It's a matter of understanding and uncovering what the alternate conversation is. And I before you all start yelling at me, go, but all they want to talk about is managed services. That's all they think they want to talk about. It's your job and I'll admit, not all of you are sales leaning, some of you are technical leaning, but as the smartest person in the room, you need to be ready to have the conversation that they should be having, not the one they think they should be having. The amount of slide decks that I've built that open, that's a great point just there. That's a great point, Andrew. Thank you. I'll just segue into that for a second. Helping your clients with SMB 1001's compliance work and cyber insurance, great conversation starter. Unfortunately, more and more people are starting with that, so it'll lose its touch eventually. And I think there's an evolution there in terms of an assessment or something like that that can make the difference there. The biggest challenge for you guys is it has to keep changing. It can't be this. What security was last year, AI is this year. What's next year? Who knows? The differentiator does have to keep evolving. Looking at this piece here, the amount of slide decks that I used to build that started with who are we and what do we do and how great are we in terms of the company overview piece, that then talks to products, that then talks to a pre-built proposal, that then talks to a quote, and then we talk about pricing. It's almost like the cookie cutter approach to engaging with people when you're a salesperson. It doesn't work in the same way. Whereas if you look at provider B, I'm talking about you and what you're doing and what your challenges are. I'm talking about the business outcomes and where you want to go. Our discovery process doesn't talk about us. It talks about you. It talks about what are you trying to achieve? Where are you trying to get to? Like, what does good look like? How do you get to a beach where you can live on a beach for a period of time and away you go from there and the business carries on behind you? It's all about you.
I think as well, like, we've all been in those presentations, right? Particularly, and I love that you've said vendors, because vendors is a great example. Like, we've all been in those presentations where I was literally in one like a month ago with a customer. We were sitting in the office. They were just going through, like, here's how we've changed. Like, they were already pre-known to the customer, but here's how we've changed. Here's our products. Here's what we do. Oh, how do you think you can use our products, rather than, this is what we can tailor to you. And I'm not saying every proposal or every conversation has to be this tailored, bespoke service, but I mean, I do think we are moving that way, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
I think that not every proposal has to be like that, but it's just about changing the language and reframing the solution about how it suits the customer needs. And I think as well, you can still put who you are and your points of difference at the end of that presentation.
Absolutely.
But don't lead with that.
I think to Paul's point there, in terms of aligning to meet customers' business outcomes, you've still got to stack. In order to deliver and grow consistently, you've still got to have something consistent to sort of hang your hat on, product A, product B, and away you go. Because at some point, if you keep offering more offerings to everybody, it just gets too convoluted and messy. There's still a standardization value to what you're doing. But if I'm reading Paul's comment right in terms of how do you help customers achieve business goals through delivering tech and support services, that's the conversation that's had. What are your outcomes? I mean, go and ask. If you don't understand where your clients are going and what they're trying to achieve and what's important to them, you've missed all the opportunities.
And I know I've been in a couple of your proposal calls, Aaron, and you know how we sort of sell as well. We always start with, when we're doing that discovery, what is your business goal? Like, what are you trying to get to? And how does marketing align to that? How does sales align to that? Like, a lot of the time we're like, oh, we want to grow by another 100K this year. well, okay, we need to work backwards. And I've said this before in a couple of webinars. We need to work backwards from there about what do we need to be doing from a marketing perspective? How many MQLs do we need to be, producing? How many leads does that and then work it backwards from there. And then you come in from a sales perspective. Okay, how do we convert those MQLs? That's the sort of the path that we take when we're selling, I suppose, or having that discovery conversation. You guys should be doing the same. It's what are their business goals? What are they looking to achieve? And how does IT help them along that path?
And I think it's a good little segue into here. How do you stop? Guys, we know what the vendors look like. If you've talked to Microsoft, you've talked to ConnectWise, you've talked to any of these vendors, they're there to move product predominantly. That is what they care about. Whereas vendors, and I think the line here is right, vendors are tolerated, advisors are sought out. You are already in a privileged position because most of you have been working with the clients you've been working with for such a long time that you are a trusted advisor. But your ability to grow in today's environment has shifted dramatically because there are so many IT companies out there all doing the same sort of thing. Your key pieces here being vendors answer RFPs where you guys shape what's going on first. How many times have you been involved in an RFP where you got to write the RFP? That's effectively what you're doing if you're in the right seat. Vendors get replaced because it gets a pricing, costing, how do we do this, what's going on here, and how do I do this at a lower cost? Whereas advising and being there and offering the right advice, even if you don't win the business this time, means that you might do next time. And I think that's the piece there of, and that bottom line there of I need to sell something today is most inexperienced salespeople's biggest challenge.
Desperation.
Desperation is key. I've said it to those of you who've heard me talk to you. I'm not a high pressure salesperson. I don't need to be. At some point in time, it'll be the right time for us to work together. It will work when it will work. I'm here to ultimately, and that is, I say this to every single client I work with. My job here is to make you ragingly successful, and my job here is to get you to the point where your business does that without you having to pedal faster. And ultimately, this is where you start to move from that transactional piece to the advisor role, and you work your way forwards from there.
Okay, so first thing that's overlooked, Aaron, is lots of people tend to go in having to make a sale and they don't act like that advisor. It's more of a vendor relationship, like you will buy my service. Here's how great we are, rather than listening to the customers. What's next?
Strategic conversations are missing. Ultimately, if you can't, and if your people can't have a strategic conversation, this is the next part that you need to skill up in. This is the first move from coming from that tactical tradie into the strategic advisor. The curiosity piece in terms of, the old opener is pretty straightforward. Let me tell you what we do. We're a managed service provider. How many of you have had the conversation where you've gone, we do managed services, we do this, and this, and already you've pitched? Whereas what I prefer to do in a strategic engagement, a lot of what I'm coaching people on right now is if you've got a whiteboard in front of you, I don't even mind if you do it on a piece of paper with them sitting next to you. If you can have a strategic conversation that is curiosity centric around where do you sit now? What is going on in your business now? And then where do you want it to get to? Like this new opener piece that's here is exactly it. Don't worry about us. I'll take you on the journey. But what does success look like for you guys in the next 12 months? Where are you trying to get to? We're so keen to just go and talk about our products and our offering, our service and everything else. You sound like everyone else at that point in time. But if you're talking about their business and where they're going, the pressure comes off immediately.
I also think as well, people don't care. Most people do not care about the product, right? They don't care about, ConnectWise, this and that. I mean, that's not really appropriate, but they don't care about this cybersecurity product or this, you know, this Microsoft 365 product. I'm making stuff up clearly, but they don't care about what the actual tech underlying all of this is. I mean, I know I certainly don't sometimes, but like they just want their problem solved. They just want their problem solved. They just want their like their pain to go away. And that's really what you've got to get to, right? That's the strategic conversation.
They want outcomes. They don't care. They don't care that you've got better techs or smarter people or faster this or whatever that. It doesn't matter. They want to know that you are capable of getting them to their outcomes in a timely and appropriate manner. And you can do that in one meeting with them. You can fill an entire whiteboard with what does current look like? What does the future look like?
Yep.
Where are our gaps? And what could you do about that? And if that's got nothing to do with you, that's okay. The next one might.
That's such a good point, Aaron. Like, what are some of the things that people can do within maybe it's not an initial meeting, but maybe it's like with a current customer or they've established a relationship? Like, do you think getting a whiteboard is a really powerful thing for someone to do? Like, if they can stand up and demonstrate, like, what are some of the things people can do in those conversations?
I love a whiteboard. I'm a big fan of whiteboard, aside from the fact that the only time I can write in a legible manner is apparently when I'm writing on a whiteboard. I mean, I think you and I sat down to plan this thing out, and the first thing I asked for was a whiteboard for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
But whiteboards exist to pull people in together. And when you are collaborating with somebody, you feel like you're part of the crew. You feel like you're part of the solution to my problems. You're already building a camaraderie with that particular person on the way through as you help pull the threads with them. You're also doing something critical with this. You're also assessing them. Because if they're not willing to listen, they're not willing to open up, they don't sound like they're your person, then don't just walk away, run. If they're not the right fit, they're not the right fit.
Yeah.
But this gives you the opportunity to do that beyond just going, we do this, we do that, you need this, you need that, let's talk.
Yeah, it gives you that opportunity to involve them in that conversation, in that pitch.
100%. And I think you need to come prepared. And I think if you understand their industry, you understand what's going on in their industry, you've done a little bit of research beforehand, and please do not hear me wrong. I do not expect you to go and write a white paper on their industry or whatever. Way too many of you go way too deep, way too quickly. But come in with something that shows that you've had a look, you've had the right engagement to start with. If they're in your target industries, they're in your target people types. I mean, if they're a CFO, they operate differently to a CEO. If you understand who you're talking with, what's going on in their world, or in what you think might be going on in their world, bring something there. So when they answer your questions around where are you trying to get to, what's going on, I know that inside your industry currently, you're having these challenges. I mean, hell, if you're talking to nobody, we tended to avoid real estate agents like the plague, but real estate right now is an industry going through a hell of a lot of challenge right now because of rising interest rates and things along those lines that are driving housing prices down, softening buyers, and doing all those sorts of things. Current, relevant, useful little piece of information. And Paul, you've nailed that point, as have you, Wayne, for that matter, in terms of the last couple of pieces, in terms of if you're talking speeds and feeds, you've just got to be having a conversation that's relevant and interesting to them. The art of conversation is not talking about yourself. It's talking about them and stoking that fire of that conversation that keeps it going and keeps the momentum. And if you're not a conversationalist, that's probably okay, because there's probably someone in your business or you've surrounded yourself with that is that personality. You've just got to find who is better to do this. And every business has the back of house person and every business has the front of house person. And at some point in time, as you grow, those become more and more defined.
I think it's a great point, Aaron. Like just doing a little bit of research about what's happening in their world can be so powerful for you. And I think without giving too much away, the way I use it is I just sort of drop it in at different points in the conversation. Like it's just super powerful to be able to do that. So I think that's probably something that people can take away is find 3 points, three points that you can potentially drop into the conversation when you are having these conversations. It just builds that credibility with the audience that you're talking to as you're going. They're like, because they will pick up on those points and they'll go, oh, this person actually knows what I'm talking about or what's going on for me. And that's one of the biggest things that we say in marketing, right? You really have to be talking the language. You have to be talking the language. You have to be talking to their problems. You have to be talking in their language so that you can really build that rapport quite quickly.
And I think to that point, your whole entire conversation, I don't I can't remember in unless I am off my game, the entire conversation is actually about you and weaving my stories into the conversation we're having. I don't have any decks that exist to talk about all the cool shit that we do at the very end, other than here's the offering I think is most appropriate for you once we get to that point. But it's way further down the path than you think it is, because ultimately, while I'm having that discovery conversation with you, I don't need to talk about myself at the end. I should be weaving in useful information, customer stories, experiences, and all of that on the way through, depending on what you've said to me, that articulates that actually I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's two things here on this, and you've been reading this for the last couple of minutes, all of you. But if you look at these two, they're all very, and we used to sell with needs analysis. I mean, holy shit, the amount of us who still believe that a technical assessment is the most important thing in the world is huge. And you're right, but it should be later on in the process. It should be an assessment tool towards the end of your sales process, not at the start of the process. First and foremost, you need to know that you can do business together, that you are the right people for each other. And that only happens by understanding and asking discovery questions rather than needs, because you can meet their needs. I will guarantee it. You don't need to be anything. Your needs are, you will meet their needs in all circumstances. You know how to fix a computer. You know how to keep things running. You know how to deal with applications and people. Great. Congratulations, tick. You can do the needs. The bit you don't know is what type of person they are, how do they pay your bills? How are they going to engage with you? Are they going to do it in a meaningful manner? Are these going to be the types of people that your technicians are going to leave because you've pulled on the wrong client? Because you haven't taken the time to understand that they are a terrible match for your business because of their individual personality.
Such an overlooked point, I think. Like, just to go back to the point of this webinar, don't overlook the ability to match with the customer, right? It is a real thing. And the amount of businesses that I've spoken to just on my own entrepreneurial journey, it's that they have regretted bringing customers into their business because they ignored those signs that customer wasn't a match for their business.
This first conversation, Paul, the qualifying out early. At one point in time with Old Correct Solutions, my aim was to win or lose in 15 minutes. Because I didn't want to waste more than 15 minutes in a conversation to at least open that and understand that we're on the right path. And if we were on the wrong path, I wrapped that thing so quickly because I got either the gut feel, the questions that I was getting back, the answers I was getting back were just off. And I accepted that for what it was. And I went, that's cool. There's more fish in the sea that we can go after. You need to be able to fail fast. The processes we bring in play now have you failing within 45 minutes or succeeding, because ultimately within 45 minutes, I can have enough of a discovery conversation to understand who you are, what you do, where you fit, what's important to you, what's important to your business, what makes you unique as a business. There are some very simple questions that build that relationship with almost nil effort other than listening and asking the right questions.
So Aaron, we spoke about this when you were when we caught up in person a couple of weeks ago. I think one of the things that we shouldn't overlook is that gut feeling, right? Like, can we just talk about that for a minute? Like,
Yep.
I think we, especially in this industry, we rely on speeds and feeds and numbers and things like that. And we're almost taught like not to listen to our gut sometimes. But I actually think there's a place for that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for a lot of technically backgrounded people is you are safe in speeds and feeds. You know that computers don't argue back. You understand what they do, and without, making any judgment calls on your personality types and where you sit on whatever spectrum we all sit on, because let's face it, it's a giant spectrum now. There's different types of engagement, and and realistically the ability to have and the art of a conversation, even if you are safe in technical land and you don't like talking to people, having a way to have that conversation, to talk to the people, to understand and trust your gut, because if it feels funky, it probably is. The bit that I would encourage all of you to do is, if it feels funky, don't run straight away. Ask more questions.
Yeah.
And I think that segues us nicely in here, is you need to start listening for what they're not saying. And don't get me wrong, I have a 12-year-old who sees the world in black and white and very Sheldon Cooper approach to the world. And it's harder for some to listen to what people are not saying. But if they say one thing, your job is to keep pulling those threads to understand what it actually is that is the problem. Because when you look at, we need to upgrade our servers versus we've had 3 outages this year, the board is losing confidence in not just IT leadership, full stop. If you're not having that level of conversation going, what is important, what is critical to this business to enable its future success? If you're not having the right conversations, one of 2 things is happening. You're either talking to the wrong person, which is sales' biggest challenge, is you're actually not talking to a decision maker. You're not talking to someone with power. You're not talking, you're trying to work your way through a gatekeeper, and that's an art in and of itself, or you're having the wrong conversation. Full stop. You need to be asking, and the aim is to get to the second conversation, not the sale. The modern day sale is not a one step. I'm going to say this again. We run a program called Breaking Up Marriages, and Kayla and I are building this together at the moment, is the Breaking Up Marriages approach to the world. You don't marry the girl on the first date. You've got to date each other first. You've got to talk. You've got to understand whether you're the right fit for each other. Please stop assuming that sales and marketing gets done in a month. It's a ridiculous expectation, and it needs to die here. Sales and marketing work together on an 18 to 24-month journey, because you've got to date multiple people at the same time, which some of you don't necessarily like. But when you're in a sales game, you've got to be talking to multiple people, because not everyone's coming along for the ride. But you've got to have enough going on consistently, and that's the other half, to make sure that you are keeping the engagement, you're building the relationship, and it takes multiple touches. Because once you get through the second conversation, there's a third one and a fourth one and a fifth one and a sixth one. And it cannot. I had a terrible BDM that I worked with whose only engagement when he called somebody is, are we ready to do business yet? I'm like, oh my God, please stop talking.
Oh, yeah.
Please stop. Like, there's got to be something more to that than, are we ready to do business yet? And that's also an art in and of itself.
It comes back to that value piece, right, that we talk a lot about in marketing. It's, you've got to provide them with that value. You've got to provide them with something before you can expect the whole, are you ready to do business with me yet? And it is a value exchange. You need to be giving them something, whether that's time, energy, resources, collateral, to be able to build that rapport with them before you can expect business out of them. That is the fundamental, I think, of one of the things that is overlooked, is that you can't just walk into a customer and expect them, or a potential customer, and expect them to sign a managed services agreement right there and then. It is just not how it happens.
And I think this is the if you're expecting to sign managed services like that, your dating process is broken, because ultimately the best longer term managed services, yeah, breaking up marriages happens for one of two reasons, guys. Something catastrophic has happened. Someone got breached, someone cheated on someone, whatever it might be, or we're at death by a thousand cuts. You keep on doing it. I'll put money on the fact that every single one of you have clients who are pissed off currently, have probably been pissed off for 1 to 2 years. And at some point, the straw will break that camel's back. The last nail will go in the coffin. Pick your analogy. I don't care which one you go with. But the differential there is if you're not having consistent conversations, whoever is will win their business next. And they've got the art of the second and third and fourth and fifth conversation down. They're the ones standing in front of them, filling up whiteboards about what their AI direction is or their alignment and compliance conversations are. They are starting with the right conversations, knowing that managed services is just a once we've finished this with you, tick the box, which brings me to the next slide. Funnily enough, here we go. You are now the fries. You are no longer the main meal in terms of managed services. If you lead with managed services, we're competitive on price. That's literally the first conversation. And I think I believe, and you heard it here first, my gut feel is that managed services in and of itself will become the commoditized product in the same way that those of you who watched internet services and data networks and the NBN and all of those things coming along, you saw that entire industry. I started with PackNet in 2008, and we were selling a 10 meg internet connection for $1,800 a month on a 36-month contract with a setup fee. Now you'd be lucky to be paying in the hundreds for an internet connection on a single connection, and you are on almost no contract on the way through there because that entire industry has been commoditized into the NBN and what the NBN can provide. I feel that managed services is going down a similar path. What needs to happen now is we need to figure out where the value comes into play, because if they're the fries, where are you charging for? And if you're not charging for your own time, you're not charging for your services, you're not charging for your advice, that's the reframe. The reframe is your value, because ultimately your expertise, your methodology, your outcomes, your AI pathway, your security pathway, your compliance pathway, your whatever is important to that business pathway, and the ability and your track record of getting people to the point they need to get to is where the value sits. You should literally be able to get to the bottom of that form and tick the box on managed services, and it comes along for the ride. That second comment is it. Of course you'd want us to manage it. We built it, we know it best. It's the simplest way to do it. I'm just going to tick the box and we'll move forwards. Yep. When do you want to start? This is the differential. You are the differential. Your team needs to be the differential. And if you're not involving all parts of your business as required in the conversation that's going on, so you can prove that value differential, you're leaving things on the table.
I think that's a great reality check. I think, we've been talking about this now for probably, I'd say 12 months, maybe longer. Like the way that we deliver as an industry is going to change. Like we need to be adding more value into the market. And I'm not saying we need to do that for free. In fact, that's the opposite of what you've just said, Aaron, is you actually need to be charging for advice, projects, time. Like that's the stuff that people they want that leading expert. I think some of the challenge though is that how do you establish yourself as that leading expert? And that's really, I think, where, not to toot my own horn, but that's where marketing really comes in.
Absolutely. And I think it's this is the sales and marketing. It's not sales or marketing, guys. You can't do one or the other because you're only having half of the conversation. When you get both of those together, the strategic engagement, the strategic conversations, the content and collateral, the data that you can provide, the entire piece keep on setting you apart from everyone else. Again, you do not go to the doctor and go, "Dear doctor, I have a problem." What you do is you go to the doctor, who asks you lots and lots of different questions and answers and gives you all of that to diagnose what's going on the way through. Your job in your first meeting with them, marketing might get you that first meeting, but then you need to be on the other side. And then, funnily enough, you need to hand it back to marketing, because that's where nurture comes into play. It's a bi-directional move between sales and marketing and sales and marketing. It's a team sport. It's not an individual entity.
Yeah. And just to build on that point, it works best when marketing and sales are aligned. They're having regular conversations. They know what each other's doing. They know the customers that they're going out to see, or leads that are going out to see. Like, there has to be, like you say, this bimodal approach where things are being communicated. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
The final thing that I will talk about with regards to alignment between the three is, please don't mix up sales, governance, structure, process, procedure, and how you do things with hunting and telemarketing and new business and lead generation and events, and then marketing and content and execution and collateral and event management and all those sorts of things. They are different channels with different expertise, and you don't just get one of those things that does everything. It doesn't work that way. There are different parts to this, and how you tailor your engagement with the market needs all of those components in some way, shape, or form. Again, here's the useful pieces. Your old positioning is, "We offer managed services that do the following," or "Our monthly fee includes," the amount of times I have said those words in the past, and they worked really well in the past, because back then it was tactical. However, when you start to bring stories, you start to bring case studies, this is another area where marketing comes into play. If you're excited about it and your client's excited about it, you need to get marketing involved to write a case study about the awesome stuff that you just finished. Every time. Not just once, every time. The best businesses bang that drum, they bang it loudly, and they have it written professionally. Completely. These are the same things. That bottom line is perfect. Same product, completely different perception. You are valued, you are pushing your value, and you are talking to that in a consistent manner. This is what differentiates you on the way through.
With the customer in mind.
It's got to be with the customer in mind. If you're not, again, I don't need to talk about myself. I'm talking about the outcomes that I've provided. Kayla does the same thing. You guys need to be talking about outcomes, not what you do, because what you do is just the vehicle that gets you there. The outcomes are the bits that people want from you. Alrighty. What changes Monday morning? I've got opinions here. I wrote them into a deck. 3 shifts. Your opening questions and the audit of that, and your first meeting agenda all come as part of, am I actually going to spend time with you, and what does my discovery start with? And do I keep this conversation going? Have a look at what you're asking and the process. And yes, I said process because you can't just wing it if you want to scale this thing. You have to be able to bench people against the answers that they give, so you know that they're the right fit or the wrong fit for you. Have a look at your discovery. If you don't have a discovery, come and have a conversation, because ultimately the discovery is where everything starts. Your first meeting agenda, if you've got stuff about you in that first meeting agenda, get rid of it. Honestly, you do not need to talk about yourself in the first meeting, other than weaving your experience into the conversation you're having with someone else. This is the extended piece to that. Lead with something that shows that you know what they are experiencing, what they are going through, the pain that they are having. One of the questions I love asking of people in this part is, I've got 2 lenses to uncover your issues. Number 1 is one of the questions we talked about before. What keeps you up at night? Second is, what is said around the water cooler by your staff? What do they think the issues are? And if you can bring those to the table, going, hey, how's the company going? What keeps you up at night? And just an interesting one, are your staff saying the same thing? Do they have those same experiences, or what are they talking about during their downtime, collaboration time, bitching and whining time around the water cooler? Doesn't matter, whatever it might be. What is that topic of conversation from both directions? The final piece there is managed services needs to be at the end. Where you need to lead is more value adds. If you're not sitting there going, where's your direction? Where is your focus for the business? If it's not centered around there, around either compliance, governance, protection, evolution, whatever it might be for their business that's important to them, that's what you lead with. The managed services is the byproduct, not the main meal. They're not massive changes. They are a tweak in terms of how you're going. And it is important to still have your core offering in there eventually. But there's nothing where I know before we did projects only if there were managed services at the end. Please don't underestimate the value of having more strategic projects where you charge for your time to an appropriate dollar value, and it probably needs another zero on it than you want to put on it. But you charge appropriate for your time. The outcomes are phenomenal. You might have another project before the managed services comes off. Before that ticks box is a logical one to put in play. Don't be in such a huge rush to get the marriage signed straight away. At the end of the day, sometimes you've got to have a few dates in projects before you get to the end piece, which is the fries on top. But it'll happen eventually if you do it right. Here you go. Here's your one-line mindset shift, and this is absolutely what needs to go into all sales team currently. Stop selling what you have and start solving for what clients need. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, too many salespeople are trained and coached on what we have to sell, not what problems we solve and what challenges and how to uncover the challenges that clients have. They don't need to sell straight away. Your salespeople shouldn't be selling straight away. If you don't have at least a 3-month to 6-month journey where they get to know the customers, they get in front of people, they understand what the customer challenges are first, they're in the wrong conversation. They should be out there understanding, getting more knowledge, getting more data, and proving themselves as a problem solver rather than a salesperson.
I think one of my favorite sayings is, we don't sell services or products, we sell solutions to problems.
That's the answer. That is literally it. Q&A time. And Elliot, I saw your pain to profit client. We actually had a pain to profit ratio where we scored clients in terms of their operational maturity level, and pain to profit was one of those levels that we watched and measured them against. If they were too high a pain for the profit we were gaining, then we actively exited or actively moved them to either increase the money or decrease the pain, depending on which way you want to go there. Q&As, throw them in, have the chat. Oh, there is a Q&A section.
There is.
Watch out.
I think it's a really great shift. I think if we can see more and more people starting to move into that consultative, let's call it consultative selling process, as opposed to tactical selling process, I think that we're going to see a dramatic shift in I guess the way the industry operates. What do you think is your advice, Aaron, for someone who's maybe not naturally in that consultative sort of selling mindset? Like, what are maybe 3 things that they can do to, I guess, shift into that mindset? I mean, you obviously said a few things before about auditing their questions, so maybe doing a bit of an audit is one of them, but is there anything else that you sort of coach people through to move into this mindset?
I think the thing there, and on there, how do you shift a team that's been used to selling tactically for years? I think one of the biggest challenges you've got, and this is something that I actually didn't get hired for a job about 12, 15 odd years ago, because the guy who was hiring me basically challenged me and accused me of being too much of a product pushing salesperson and incapable of having it. He said it's a 2-year journey to move someone from a product pushing salesperson to a more consultative person. Now, you guys do that natively leading your businesses. That is, you've got to that point by just doing what you do. The shift for those people is a structured one in terms of here are the types of conversations we have. We don't talk like this. If you're changing your collateral, you're changing. I can't remember the last time I had a pitch deck. I want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to my pitch deck. I'd like to talk to you and understand what you need. Yes, the pitch deck might come in at some point to sort of support what I'm saying, but in all reality, the pivot needs to be the how you have the conversation, and how to get people out of that is by resetting and coaching and educating them on how to have the conversation differently.
Yeah, that's great. That is, I think, really the answer.
I'll answer that first question on here. How do you handle a customer who just wants a quote and doesn't want to engage in discovery? Do you know what the answer to that is, Kayla?
Sorry, what? Who? Oh, sorry, I can just see it.
No, you're right. How do you handle a customer who just wants a quote and doesn't want to engage in discovery? You can't see the door behind me, but there's a door, and you should be walking out it. Realistically, if they're not willing to walk your process and they're not willing to go through the steps that result in successful outcomes, you need to walk away. Don't be that desperate that every single business, and to the pain to profit, not all profit is worth it. If you can't go through your discovery, you can't uncover whether or not this person is a good fit or a poor fit. And I would argue 99% of the time, someone who just wants a quote and doesn't want to engage in discovery is already asking you the wrong questions.
Yeah,
if you can.
I think that's a customer that's just looking for a price comparison.
Correct.
Like we see this, a lot of people on this call know that I have another business outside of this business, and we constantly get calls for people that just want a price on what we're selling, and it's they're just doing a ring around. They don't want to actually have a conversation about, the benefits of the ceramic coatings for their cars and things like that. And they're just looking for a price comparison and comparing it to the dealer or whoever else they've gone to. So they're just not our customer. It's the same thing here.
And that's exactly it. Ultimately, from that side of the fence, Paul asked a question: what's a realistic ramp up period for a BDM joining an MSP before they're consistently delivering results? I've got 2 answers to that, because in all reality, you should have at least 6 months of salary up your sleeve for them to start that ball rolling, preferably 12. So if you don't have that, you're still probably the BDM. That is the first answer I would have, is in most cases, you're still probably the BDM. The second part to that in terms of a ramp up period is if you're just measuring that BDM on outcomes in terms of revenue, you're probably also lacking in step-by-step uplifts for that person. In this industry, we don't, the best-in-class organizations are selling 2.4 appropriately sized managed service contracts a quarter. I average that out to 1 a month because I like nice round numbers, and I don't like rounding down to 2 because 3 works in a quarter. But 1 per month is what you need. What that means, and to Kayla's point in terms of multiples out, if their close rate is just 10% of what they're talking to, they need to be having 10 conversations every single week on the way through, if not more. If they're smaller than that, by the time you get them further down your pipeline and their close rates are higher, great, less conversations. But if you work that up your pipeline, 1 deal per month at a 10% close ratio means you've got to be in the game at 10 times. In order to get in the game at 10 times, assuming that you write off 50% of the people that you talk to, you're going to be having at least 20 new ones on the way through. Beyond that, if marketing is pushing out to people to the tune of, what's your current rate in terms of like email responses and that sort of engagement at the moment, Kayla?
Yeah, probably 25% is something I would consider a good open rate.
Right. So at 25%, you then need 80 odd people sitting in your list we target having 300 people in a marketing qualified list. Now, that is people who are right heartbeat, right attitude, right approach, happy to give up their mobile phone number and their email to get into a nurture list for you. That's where the BDM actually supports that structure. But they are, if you're not measuring them on those leading indicators through the first 6 to 12 months, they should be nailing those leading indicators. Meetings with the right clients, qualified MQLs, sales qualified leads who've gone through your process. They should be able to go and have advisory-led conversations with those customers, because those advisory-leds will result in projects. It may not result in MRR to start with, but those are way easier things to get over the line than breaking up the marriage, which is the whole MRR shift of managed services. You should be understanding what those leading indicators are over that sort of 6 to 12 to 18 month period that result in them being able to start to cover their seat cost and then eventually start to thrive because they've built that momentum up. But it's 12 to 18 months before they should start to hit their strides consistently. And that's where, between Kayla and I, we've been talking about a Breaking Up Marriages program where we talk about sales, nurture, and marketing all sort of wrapped into one. And my guidance there is you'd expect to be within 12 months' time, you'd start to see consistency there, because we're bringing people into different events through that period of time. And it's that structure piece that if you don't have that in play, you need to get it.
Yeah, there's definitely steps as well, I think, that you need to be putting 100%. In place before you get a BDM.
Correct. And you often don't need one if you've got the other things going on, and particularly in an MSP, you only need one per month, guys. If I can hand you an appointment a week, that's the piece that you're looking for, is an appointment a week to go, right, I'm just going to go and see this person. But an appointment a week doesn't happen instantly. It happens within 6 to 12 months, where the appointment I'm booking for you is a AI conversation or a strategic consulting conversation around cybersecurity, and then give it back. I want it back. Kayla wants it back. We both want it back so we can keep talking to them. And it's centered around events and engagements and take them to the footy and whatever else it might be. There's a structured program for that has to support any BDM in play, because they can't do it themselves. They're not going to.
I think the worst thing you can do as well is start marketing and start and hiring a BDM when you're desperate. You want to be doing it before you need to, because like you said, it takes that, 6 to 12 months to really start to, bear fruit. You don't want to be doing that when you're desperate, or when you have a revenue dip. You want to be doing it now when you're in a good position, so that you've got that momentum built and that person is well supported when you do see that revenue dip, which you inevitably do because it's business.
I am conscious of time, so I'm just going to answer Elliot's question. One of the things that we see walking into most companies is that there is a significant amount of revenue inside your existing customer base, and that tends to be where we spend the first 6 to 12 months unpacking that, converting old agreements, getting rid of things, tidying up things, increasing your recurring. One of the clients that I'm working with just topped the list inside Evolve for recurring revenue growth, and that was through 9 months of working together. They incremented that by about $45,000 a month just in that period of time, just by tidying up their backyard. So there is revenue there too. It helps fund the other side, but you need to be starting it all at the same time, because in order to bear fruit in that 6 to 12 month process, it takes time, and you may as well start now rather than wait for it. And that's the answer there. Come get us, guys. If you've got any other questions, we are both here to help. Kayla, closing remarks from you, thought process?
Thanks, Aaron. That was awesome. I really think I really think that, like I said, we're going to see a shift in the way that people sell and the way people structure their business based off what you've sort of said today. So I'm really excited. The other thing I will say is we do have another webinar coming up next month, and that is going to be on the metrics that matter in marketing. So if that's something that interests you, then I would keep an eye on your emails because we'll be sending that one out very, very soon, like in the next couple of days.
Awesome.
But thanks for joining us, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Cheers.